Yeah, so I'll just go over it again. So my name is Sean. I'll just be going over a quick overview of Tableau. Um, if you guys haven't installed, I think it'd be best if you guys go over it along with me, as I'll first go over kind of like a brief overview of all like the main features of Tableau, and then after that we'll actually create three main presentations and then actually create a dashboard at the end. So it should be some fun. All right. Um, So just the overall context, first we'll be going over just like what is a good visualization and like why you should create one, then go over the whole workflow of Tableau and then actually create the visualizations. And then at the end, I'll give you just kind of like some theory behind um, what you should be thinking of when you're thinking about creating a chart. So whether you should be using a line chart or a bar chart and stuff like that. So when you're creating a visualization, there are a few main reasons you should be doing it. For one, is just to record the information. And then after that, try to analyze it and see if there's any trends or important outliers within the data. And then, mainly for you guys as graduate students, I'd imagine you guys have some hypothesis and then you guys are, gathering all this data. And then you want to make sure that's like for one statistically significant. And then actually after that, create graphs for your papers and stuff like that. So this is the general workflow. First, you connect your data. I'll be just using Excel and connecting Excel data to Tableau. Then after you connect it, then you have to analyze the data, create your own graph, see if there's any major trends or outliers within the data. And then after that is the sharing and publishing part of it. I created this slide just to make sure that creating PowerPoints really isn't a purely linear process. You'll most likely be going through many iterations and you'll see the data and see, oh, maybe I should be analyzing something else within the data instead, and then do more experiments and just realize that it's not just like a quick process. It'll most likely go through a few iterations, similar to like writing like an essay type video. So once you open up Tableau, this is the first page you should see. It's the connect page. And on the left here, you see all these different data files that you can connect. There are two main data sources that you can connect to Tableau. One is the file base. This is like your Excel spreadsheet type. And then the second is your server based. We'll be primarily focusing on the file base today and connecting in Excel. However, in the future, if you guys would like me to talk about server-based data sources, these are primarily like relational databases. I don't know if you guys have any experience with SQL and stuff like that, but those are the type of databases that you can also connect with Tableau. And lastly, there's also the saved data sources at the very bottom of the connect page. And I will just be using the sample superstore page that you guys should just see right here. I think that's something that everybody gets along with Tableau. So I thought that'd just be best for us to create the visualizations with. All right. So the first page after you connect your Excel file is this data source page. If you guys could just connect the sample superstore, as that's what I'll be using to create the visualizations. So here on the left, the first thing that you see are the connections. This is essentially just the name of the Excel file that you opened. And then underneath that are the sheets. These are essentially like the different tabs within Excel that you would normally see. So as you can see, this Excel file has three tabs within it: orders, people, and returns. And
Excuse
then,
me.
yes.
I don't think I'm seeing the same thing you are. I have it for a MacBook. I'm at the Connect Tableau server parts. I'm very, very much a novice on that.
I'm currently on the data source. Like the title is data source. Is everybody else seeing that too? Or yeah. What
I
page are
do
you
see a
on?
button for the Superstore. You said to go there, right?
Yes. On the connect page, there's this on the save data sources. There's this one file called sample superstore.
All right, just double clicked there.
Yes, and then it should take you to this page called the data source. Did you find it?
I think so. Basically it says Tableau book 1 and it has on the side orders, people, returns. It says sheet 1. I hope I'm in the right place.
Yeah. Yeah. On the bottom there where it does say sheet 1, on the left, there should also be another little tiny icon. And if you press that, it should take you to the data source.
Like I said, complete novice. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought everybody just went straight to the data source of the Tableau, but I'll continue. So on the data source page, after the connections and sheets, there's this on the top right, there's this whole canvas area. Over here, you can create kind of links, and if you have any experience with SQL, there's things like outer joins, left joins, right joins, stuff like that that you can create within those separate sheets, and you can kind of create relationships within the data. We really won't be focusing on that, as generally the best practice is to really create clean data and then put it into Tableau. Tableau really isn't meant for, cleaning up your data and arranging it and all that. It's really just meant for creating nice visualizations. So underneath the canvas is your metadata. You're also able to, like, if you like double click on any of the variables like row ID or order ID, you can see that there's many different functions that you can do. You can like rename them. You can also create aliases and stuff like that. And then there's below that, there's also the data preview. Usually they give you between 100 to 1,000, just like rows of data that you can just preview. So as I was speaking about before, on the canvas, there are unique things that you can do. Like here is just one example. I really don't want you guys to be doing this just because it's not really needed. But what you guys can do is like create inner or left or right joins within the data. So over here, I joined the orders and the people. So what this would essentially do is just add essentially extra columns to the orders table. That is same to people. So this is more like advanced stuff that I really won't be covering, but I just wanted to show you guys just so then you guys could be aware about it. Also on that same page, data source, and on top right, you should see this example of live or extract. And I just wanted to explain what that would mean. By default, Tableau uses a live connection. And what this essentially means is that every time you open up a Tableau worksheet and then you close it, if you update any data within your Excel file, once you open it up again, your Tableau worksheet should also add in the new data. And if you don't want that to happen, you can just choose the extract option, which instead will just create essentially just a copy of your data source at that particular moment of time, and just use that over and over again. So even if you do update your data on your Excel file, it won't be shown on the data worksheet. Generally, most people use live though, and I think that's what you guys would most likely use as well. On the next sheet is the Tableau Workspace. On that bottom, where there should be an icon to go into Tableau Workspace. And I'll just be going over this. This is where you'll probably be spending the vast majority of your time on Tableau, creating your actual visualizations. So the first thing you should see on the left is the data pane, which essentially lists all the variables within your data. The next are the columns and rows. I'll go over this in the future of actually how to put in the variables and stuff into the columns and rows. At the moment, I'll just be giving you like a brief overview of it. This is essentially where you will be putting in all your variables from the data pane into here to create your actual visualizations. So whatever chart you want to make, you'll put them into the columns and the rows. After that are the filters. Once you actually create your visualizations, you'll want to create some type of functionality within them, and sometimes you'll just have so much data that you do just want to filter it. So that's kind of the main purpose of the filters. I'll also be going over this in the future. Just keep that in mind. And then lastly, the marks. This is pretty cool. This is where you can also add in any of your variables and into like the colors or size section. And essentially it'll allow you to just encode your data with just more functionality and just make it multi-dimensional. I understand it probably doesn't make too much sense right now, but I will be going over an example, and that should really help you guys understand it better. And then lastly, this is like this main canvas over here is called the view, and this is where your visualizations will show up. And within the data field, there's mainly two types of data that you'll see. In the blue is just called the dimensions, and in the green it's the measures. Usually the dimensions are on top and then the measures are on the bottom. The best way to think about it is that the dimensions are like the categorical data, whereas the measures categorical data that fits into the dimensions. And generally the categorical data is like when you see a normal table, the categorical data is usually like the different columns, and then the measures are the rows within that column. And then these are the different data types. I'm sure most of you guys have already seen these different data types before. I think the only unique one may just be the geographical field. And this will allow you to essentially create nice maps within the data. So these are the three maps that I'll be making today: the heat map, the dual axis chart, and the clustered map. I chose these in particular just because I thought they're somewhat difficult. So you should be using a lot of the various tools that Tableau offers, and just give you a very nice overview of Tableau. So the first thing that we'll create is this heat map. So at the very end, this is what you guys should have. So the first step for you guys to do is to first, on the left side in the data pane, you should see the order date and just drag that into the column section. If you guys could do that. And then under product, you guys should have a subcategory, and then put that into the rows. And you guys should have a visualization that looks just like this. I'll wait a second and then I'll continue on. And be free to just talk if you have any questions.
I have too many. Like I said in the chat, I think I'm completely lost on where you're getting anywhere. I just don't want to interrupt too much.
Well, where are you? Do you have the data on Tableau?
I guess I have the data on Tableau. All I'm at is the part where it says sample superstore, and it has all the order IDs. And to the side, it says orders, people returns, new union, new table, something. And then there's a part that says go to worksheet. That's a sheet 1. But I don't know how you're getting to all those tabs you showed us and what's going on.
It would be a lot easier if you were in person. If maybe at the very end, we can just talk afterwards. I am free, so we can just go over it then. But is everybody else doing okay, or is it like a common problem? Okay. All right, so hopefully by now you have added the order date into the columns and then the subcategory into the rows. The next step is using the mark section here, where you will put the quantity, which is the measures in the green, into in the mark section, the color. So you'll just essentially just drag and drop it into the color section. And then you'll drag and drop the profit into the size in the marks. So once you do this, you should create a graph like this. So this is essentially what a heat map is. It's just giving a really nice visualization of the data and just like a broad overview, which I thought would be a good idea for the first visualization. So as you could see, what the marks essentially does is just create some extra dimensionality into your data, unlike what a typical, as you would imagine, like a typical Excel chart would look like. You can see essentially by the size how much profit a particular subcategory has made. So the larger the circle, the more profit it has made, and then also the darker the color, I think, the more quantity it has sold. The next chart is the dual axis chart. So if you could just on the bottom, I just add another sheet. Just add another sheet, and because we will be creating a dashboard which requires multiple sheets, so I don't want you to delete the first one. And this is what we will be creating. The first step is just adding the year order date into the columns, and then the sales into the rows. Has everybody done that? You should see a graph just like this. All right, the next step is this discount in the measure section. I don't want you to actually put it into the rows. I just want you to kind of drag it all the way to the right here of of the graph, and then you should see like this faint line that allows you to just drop it there, and then you'll essentially create a dual axis chart because of that. And if your graph doesn't look like this, it's most likely because your marks, it's mostly like a box. So if you could just change it to a line to make it look like this. Anybody having any problems or any questions? All right, so I'm assuming you've put the discount onto the right section here and created this dual axis chart. The next step is actually formatting the discount and making it look like this. So the first thing I want you to do is over here on the average discount, on the discount, you need to right click it, and it's probably on sum right now, and you're gonna convert it to average. You should see it as you right click it. There's that one option. And then the second thing you need to do is right click it again, and there should be a format option on there. And you'll change it from numerical to percentile. It should show up on like the left screen right here. Any problems or any questions? All right, the next step is sales on your marks and changing it from a line to a bar. So the main reason I did it was just show like a better representation of the data. I felt like the line graph wasn't just accurately describing it, as it is kind of like categorical in numerical data. So I figured it'd be best as a bar graph. Then the last thing I want you guys to do is to, over here in the product section in the data field, there's this category, and I want you to drag the category into the columns. This essentially just further divides the data into the different subcategories that are available. And then you should be seeing a graph like this. Any questions before I continue? All right. Then the last graph we're going to make is like this clustered map. So if you could just add another sheet, this should be your third sheet now, and then we'll be making this now. So the first thing on the bottom of the data field, you should have longitude and latitude variables. And if you could just drag them into the right columns and rows. And a map should just appear with really nothing on it, but all right, the next step is here in a location. If you just drag the city into the detail section of the marks, the rest of the country and the state should also follow in with it. But if you just drag the city into the details, the rest of it will also appear. And then you should find a graph like this where there's just multiple, probably blue dots on your map. This is just showing all the different cities from which they collected data from. Right. The next step is then from your measures, putting in the profit into the color section of the marks, and then the sales into the size. And then this will essentially change the dots into, it'll change the size depending on the amount of sales and then it will change the color depending on the type of profits. And then you should see like an index on your right side, highlighting depending on the color, how much profit you made. Any questions? All right. On the bottom, right next to the sheet, there should be another icon for a dashboard. So if you guys could press on that. You should just see a layout just like this. And on the left side, you should see the different sheets that we just created. And over here, it's really just kind of up to your own personal preference. This is what I just created. It really isn't that great if you, I just wanted to just put everything onto one page just so then you guys could all see it. Ideally though, you would create multiple dashboards, highlighting the different, outliers or whatever trends you wanted to show. But I just wanted to add everything onto one dashboard. But how you do this is essentially just dragging and dropping the various sheets onto the dashboard. And then like suppose you want sheet 3 on the right side, then you just simply drag it onto the right side of the sheet and then just drop it there. It shouldn't be too difficult. And one really cool thing with dashboards, does anybody have any questions before I continue?
Could someone explain to me how we even got from point A to point B? I know we're going to go over that later. I don't want to interrupt anyone, but was I supposed to like click on some kind of data or something to get there? Because I know what I'm doing.
I'm almost done. I'll go over it with you right after this. So on the dashboard, if you click on one sheet, you should see this option right here for the filter. And this gives you some pretty cool features. So if you guys can find this particular icon and click on it, what this allows you to do essentially is to pick any different variable and it'll change the rest of the sheets accordingly. So for example, if I press 2020 on sheet 1, and this is the filter, and then sheet 2 would only show the 2020 data, and sheet 3 would only show the amount of profit and the amount that we sold just from 2020. And you can really use it for any different sheet. So it just adds another area of functionality to it. And this is essentially the main use case of Tableau. There are, of course, multiple other things you can do within it. Like, for example, if you want to create your own new variables, have multiple different data streams or sources, then it could get quite complex. But I imagine for most of y'all, it would just be connecting a typical Excel file into Tableau. So I didn't really feel the need to go into too much detail on that. Lastly, on the dashboard page, on the top left over here, you should see like a file where you can save your Tableau. It's pretty similar to just like saving an Excel file. However, you only have two options. There's TWB and then TWBX. And the main difference is that TWB will only save the Tableau workbook, and whereas TWBX will save the workbook along with the corresponding Excel or data file along with it. So that's the main difference between these two versions of saving the data. And lastly, I just wanted to go over like the different chart types and when would it be like the right time to use one or the other. So just more theory. So the first three that you would most likely come across are the line, bar, and heat map. So lines are pretty good for viewing trends and data over time, whereas bars are better for more categorical data, which is why for the dual axis, I chose to use bar data for the amount that we sold. And then heat maps, like the first one, it's really good about showing relationship between two factors. For us, that would be the amount of profit and then the amount that we sold. The next type are like a highlight table, a tree map, or a Gantt. And they all have their own unique features that you can go over. I will most likely send the PowerPoint so you guys can look over it on your own basis. But there are these various chart types. There's also like a scatter plot or histogram. They're both pretty good when you're trying to understand like the distribution within your data. And you want to see like whatever various percentile, the mean, median, mode, stuff like that. And lastly, there's these different maps, like a symbol map, which is pretty similar to what we just made in the heat map. It gives you a pretty good geographical idea of where you sold. Like for example, in a business context, would be, oh, what area in like America are we selling the most goods and stuff like that. And area maps, you can think about them. They're pretty common in like political debates and stuff, like which state had, you know, is it more red or is it more blue, and you know, stuff like that. And then of course there's box and whisker for showing the distribution of a data set. In conclusion, hopefully I gave you a good enough idea of the various use cases of Tableau. It really isn't too difficult. It's kind of like Excel in a way where like you do have either after you get a general sense of how to use Excel, there's just like a multitude of different things that you can do. And there's really like no way of just like purely learning it. It's just continuously just practicing and seeing if you have any questions, just like searching it up. Tableau has really good documentation, which is really good. So if you're ever confused, it's really easy to find the right answers. So if anybody has any questions, and I'll certainly come back to Cherish, I believe, afterwards. And maybe you can share your screen. But does anybody have any questions? Or need anything for me to go over?
I have a general question for you. So I imagine you're also learning Tableau at some point, and you're kind of in our position, people who are generally interested. Are there any good practice data sets that you recommend working with, you know, besides this one that you introduced to us?
Sure. I found just most of mine online, quite honestly, or just using whatever data. Like for example, I'm a data analyst here at the library, so just using the data that the library gave me. But it's really easy to just find good data online, honestly. There's like tons of, like similar to what I did, there's multiple workshops on Tableau and they all have their own data sets. And I think on YouTube, I think when I was first learning it, I was just learning it on YouTube. And usually they just found data online as well. And you can just kind of just use the same data that they use. There's some pretty good workshops out there, I think. Yeah.